Welcome back to Discovering Home. I'm your host, Karla Monterrosa, a coach for Christian moms who desire more time and flexibility to focus on their home and families. Last week on the show, we talked about the mindset shifts that helped me come home and trust God now for nearly a decade, even during seasons when finances were hard. Today, I want to talk about a fear that almost always surfaces in the hearts of working moms who are prayerfully discerning a shift toward home-centered living. What happens to my career if I step away? What about the gap on my resume? What if I need to return to work later? Will anyone hire me again? Am I throwing away everything I worked so hard for? These are honest questions, and they deserve thoughtful answers. Today, I want to walk you through a different way to think about this fear. Because the truth is, stepping away from paid work does not mean you stop growing, contributing, or developing your skills. In fact, many women discover that the years they spend investing in their home and family become some of the most formative and meaningful years of their lives. And that's been the case for me. So today, we're going to talk about the career gap fear and why it might not be the career-ending decision our culture sometimes makes it out to be. For many women, especially women who have invested years in education and professional development, the idea of stepping away from a career can feel like losing a part of your identity. You may have worked hard for your degree. You may have spent years building credibility, experience, and professional relationships. And in our culture, work is often tied very closely to how we measure success and value. So when a mom begins to consider stepping away, even temporarily, it can trigger fears like, will I fall behind? Will I lose my professional credibility? What if I need to work again someday? Am I wasting my education? These fears are very common and some that I wrestled with myself. But sometimes the question underneath those fears is even deeper. Who am I without my career? And that's a question worth bringing to the Lord, because our identity was never meant to be rooted primarily in our job titles. I want to invite you to look at this decision through a different lens. Instead of focusing only on the short-term risks, I want us to consider the long-term view. Because when we step back and look at our lives through the lens of seasons, we begin to see that what looks like a pause in one area may actually be a season of growth in another. I like to think of it this way. God has given us a long launching pad. Just as we will be working out our faith day by day until the return of Christ, it's a lifelong journey. We will also continue growing, learning, building, and contributing in different ways throughout many seasons of our lives. This season is not the only season. It's just the one you're in right now. We will have time to do much with our lives. Every season carries different assignments. As the saying goes, you can have it all, just not all at once. And this is especially true in the earliest years of motherhood. Choosing to invest deeply in our children during one season is not the end of our story. Women can have fulfilling careers and meaningful family lives, but not always simultaneously, particularly during the first 3 years when children need their mothers most. This isn't necessarily the season to add pressure by launching something new. Devoting yourself fully to motherhood in this stage is wise, meaningful, and deeply selfless work. But if your children are a little older, or if leaving work all at once simply isn't possible, consider gradual shifts. Could you move from full-time to part-time? Could you transition into a less demanding role? Could you negotiate some remote days? Even eliminating your commute a few days out of the week can restore hours of life back to your day and relieve tremendous strain. I know this is all very countercultural. For years, many of us were taught to pursue upward mobility, to seek a seat at the decision-making table, greater leadership roles, higher titles, and greater status. And here we are, considering stepping back, reducing, or even stepping away entirely. This can feel a little bit disorienting in a culture that's going fast in the opposite direction. But you're not quitting. You're not failing. You are redefining what success looks like in this season for you and your family. You are choosing peace, presence, and purpose at home. You are choosing faith, family, and freedom over social status and financial applause. And despite how stay-at-home moms are sometimes portrayed in the media, I want to say this clearly. Stay-at-home moms are intelligent, diligent, creative, committed, and faithful workers. They are doing the deeply important work of raising the next generation. Stay-at-home motherhood is meaningful work, and what it looks like will vary by season, personality, and the ages and needs of your children. When I first came home, I honestly thought it would be temporary. I thought it would be a break, a pause from my career. My daughters were in first and third grade at the time. They were still so young, and I was exhausted. I needed time to rest, to reset, and to learn how to live differently. For a season, focusing on them required all of me. But eventually, I began exploring ways to use my skills and supplement our income in new ways. And here we are, nearly a decade later. Over the years, I've contributed in different ways. As you've heard me say in the past, I wrote a book titled Unbraided: Transform Your Pain to Power and Purpose, and that's the book that began my writing journey. I've worked as an independent contractor on short-term writing and editing projects. I translated a children's book. When my daughters were still in public school, I was also a substitute teacher for their district. And I've also let friends know that I'm available to support their businesses when they need help. And today, I write and produce this show and support women through one-on-one coaching. Each of these opportunities in their time has blessed me tremendously. Some have provided short-term income. All have built strength, resilience, and increased my faith. Coming home doesn't necessarily mean you will never work again or that you can't contribute on some level. There's a misconception that stay-at-home moms don't generate any income, but that simply isn't true. Yes, in some seasons, your children require all of you, and that's perfectly fine. It's beautiful, honorable, meaningful work, as I've said before. But there are also seasons where your children get a little older, or you simply feel the desire to create and contribute in a new way. That might look like part-time work, creating something from home, freelancing, tutoring, or even starting a small business. There are many ways to supplement your family's income that don't require all of your time and energy. The key is continuing to prioritize your children and your family while remaining open to creative ways you might contribute at home. It can be humbling to start small again, but humility always precedes growth. Over time, those small, faithful efforts become building blocks, a foundation that God can build on over time. So if you're considering a change, ask yourself some of these questions. What skills or passions have I developed over the years? What problems do people already ask me for help with? What experiences or training do I already have? Could you freelance, tutor, consult, offer project-based support, create something, or serve in a flexible way? Coming home does not mean shutting down your gifts. It simply means redefining how and when you use them. Starting something creative from home is not going to look the same way as your former job, and it's not supposed to. It really shouldn't. It likely won't replace your previous income right away, and that's not the goal anyway. The goal is not to recreate your full-time job from your living room. The goal is time freedom. The goal is margin. Space in your mind and your day to invest in what you value most, your faith and your family. So we don't want to move from a full-time job outside of the home into a full-time job that still demands all of your time and energy within your home. Yes, building a business requires a lot of time, energy, and focus. But you decide When and where and how much of your time and energy you give, there's that flexibility built in and that freedom to choose how you are building. And this is why I like to say that God has given us a long launching pad. Maybe it's not going to be an immediate success, but you're building slowly over time in a way that honors the stage and season you're in with your family. And if it doesn't generate income right away, that doesn't mean it isn't valuable. You are still sharpening your skills, learning, and growing. And God honors faithfulness over time. And remember this too, the reward isn't always monetary. God is generous and He provides, but abundance can look different than we expect. Sometimes abundance looks like slower rhythms, greater peace in your home, a more organized space, learning new skills in your kitchen, being present when your child is having a hard day, growing a garden, enjoying a quiet morning with coffee in hand while watching the birds outside your window. It could even look like relationships with your neighbors. When you're home more often, you begin to know the people around you, and they know they can rely on you. And in the same way, your friends know you're nearby if they ever need support. Those things matter to God. They are part of the richness of a home-centered life that can provide so much fulfillment. Friend, your life is not one narrow path. It's a long journey made up of many seasons. Some seasons are for building careers. Some seasons are for nurturing little hearts. Some seasons are for creating, serving, and mentoring others. And God is faithful to guide you through every one of them. So if you're in a season where you feel the pull to slow down and invest more deeply in your home and your children, I want to encourage you that by doing so, you are not stepping backward. You're stepping into a different assignment. And the work happening inside your home may be some of the most important work you will ever do. And friend, if this is a question that you've been wrestling with, I want to invite you to take the short quiz, Is God Calling You into a New Season of Motherhood? It's designed to help you prayerfully reflect on where you might be in this process and what your next steps could look like. You can find it at karlabmonterrosa.com/quiz. When you take my quiz, you are automatically added to my email list, and it's a great way to stay informed and in touch with me. And if you'd like more personal support as you discern your next season, I also offer one-on-one coaching. You can learn more about that on my website as well. Before we close, I want to say something clearly. I'm not telling you that you need to come home so that you can simply learn how to work differently. If you are able to devote yourself fully to homemaking in this season, that is beautiful, meaningful, and deeply impactful work. But I also know that some women simply can't step away all at once. There are real financial necessities, real obligations and constraints, and wisdom doesn't ignore those realities. For the woman who cannot step out completely, perhaps the invitation is to step back first. Remote days, part-time, a less demanding role, or eliminating the commute. Small shifts can restore hours of life to your day. And sometimes those hours are what begin to change everything. A woman once told me, many women just don't have the luxury of being stay-at-home moms. And I've thought about that often. For some, perhaps it is a luxury, but for many of us, it didn't feel luxurious at all. It felt like sacrifice. It meant reducing income. It meant slowing advancement. It meant choosing stability and presence for our children over our own personal ambitions. And sometimes it means doing some of both, contributing financially in smaller, more flexible ways while protecting your presence at home. What if we stopped seeing this decision through the lens of status and luxury? Galatians 6:9 reminds us, "Let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up." Motherhood is doing good. Building slowly is doing good. Starting small is doing good. Stepping back wisely is doing good. You don't plant and harvest on the same day. You don't step onto a runway and take off in one stride. God has given you a long launching pad. This is not the only season of your life. You are not behind, and you are not disappearing. You are building differently. Sometimes the work that matters most in God's kingdom is the work that the world doesn't always recognize. The quiet work, the faithful work, the work of nurturing hearts, building a home, and raising the next generation. But God sees it, and in His perfect timing, He brings the harvest. So if this is the season God is calling you into, be faithful with what He has placed in front of you today and trust Him in the process and with the outcome. Nothing done in obedience to God is ever wasted. Until next time, God bless you.